I taught 7th grade math for 6 years and was the assistant principal there for 1 year. From there, I went to Crab Orchard Elementary School, where I was at for 10 years. During that time, we saw lots of positive changes at the school. One being the school was recognized by the Educator Foundation Consumer Award for our gains on student achievements. We had the second highest gains in Middle Tennessee. From there, I became the Supervisor of Instruction in 2017, and I was a finalist for the Tennessee Supervisor of the Year in 2020, representing the Upper Cumberland region, and I was chosen at the district level by my fellow administrators, and I took that as a huge, huge honor and was very blessed to have that opportunity. In my spare time, I do teach graduate level classes for South College. And I am married. My husband is the Director of Technology for Cumberland County Schools. My son attends Tennessee Tech. My daughter attends Middle Tennessee State. This is her first year, so that should be interesting when we get together. And I have the most adorable Maltese puppy that you have ever seen, and he's very protective of me. I enjoy running, and in 2018, I completed my first marathon. Another one in December of 2022. I also a 12-picture collection that I started over 20 years ago. And I do believe that the director of schools should be the instructional leader of the school system. I also feel that the director of schools should be transparent, consistent, responsive, and with all stakeholders. And I do believe that my experience as a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and a district supervisor would be a valuable asset to bring to the director of schools job in Fentress County. I believe in the short amount of time that you've had to hear about my professional and personal life that you can see that I am a dedicated and determined individual.
Okay, why don't we start over here at this end of this verse and go around, okay? Go ahead.
Okay, is that on? All right. Okay, Dr. Farley, Gyla Young, principal at York Elementary, and my question is about teacher retention. And we have lost several teachers in the past few years due to insurance and pay. What would be your plan to help retain teachers?
Obviously, we would need to look at our pay scale and our benefit scale and see how we compare with districts around us. I think, too, we would need to begin working on that relationship between County Commission and see if we need to develop additional funding or take the necessary steps to ensure that we can retain good teachers. Not only is retention of good teachers about pay and benefits, but we also need to make sure that they have the support that they need, not only at the building level, but at the district level as well, and that they have the necessary materials that they need to complete their job.
The question I have is about challenges, and we all know that education has many challenges. What do you believe is the greatest challenge facing Fentress County schools at this time, and how do you plan to address this challenge?
Well, in researching, one area that I think is a huge challenge is test scores. I noticed that your reading you had 27% proficient in reading, 23% in math, 27 in social studies, and I think 32 in science. I know everything is not about a test score, So I think we would need to get to the root causes and make sure that our relationships and relevance and rigor with the students is there. But test scores would definitely be one challenge that we could start working on.
William Bilber, assistant principal at Pine Haven Elementary. I know we've got some questions here. I'm going to jump down one of them I feel like is a very important one. Kind of a two-parter. So what are your plans to move Fitchurst County schools in a more positive direction, first off?
In a more positive. Well, obviously, we could start with test scores. I believe that the qualities of a good teacher are still, even in 2021, the 3 R's. However, they're not writing, reading, and arithmetic like we used to think they were. I think that they are relationships, rigor, and relevance. And I think that's where we need to make sure that our teachers are. I think that our students need to know that the teachers do care about them and that school is a safe place to come. And once we get that relationship piece built up and students know that they're valued, then we can work on the rigor of our lessons and make sure that those rigorous lessons are relevant and applicable to students' lives.
Kind of the second part to that, what in your words, why do you think it's important for you to be the director of schools, and what could you bring to the county to take where we're at and make it better?
Well, as I stated before,
Right.
I do have experience as a teacher. I have been an assistant principal. I have been a principal, and I have been a district leader. I'm pretty aware of the initiatives that's coming out from the State Department. I stay attuned to all of those. But not only that aspect, but I do believe that that experience would be valuable, and I can relate to a teacher in the classroom. I can relate to an assistant principal in the struggle you may be having that day, sir. I can relate to a principal and a district leader. And I feel that those would be huge assets.
Thanks.
Dr. Farley, Ernest Campbell, principal at Allert. My question would be, what plan do you have to engage family and community into our school system?
Well, if I expect families to be at the schools, I think I should be at the schools. I know, I don't live that far away. I do live in Cumberland County, and I do a lot of business here in Fitchurst County. And one thing that I've been hearing that is a concern of lots of people is that I don't live in Fitchurst County. Well, my plan had been that I would be staying 2 to 3 nights over here, at least every week, if not more, because I feel that to have a good hold on things and to understand your school system, we not only need to see what's going on during the day, but we need to see what's going on at night. So I would want to be at your schools and attending your family engagement activities. I would want to be attending basketball games. I would want to be attending PTO meetings. So I think that that would be one thing, just being there and knowing that they have my support. But also I would work with each principal. I would, within the 30 days, like to meet with each school administrator and develop our yearly school goals for the upcoming year. And family engagement would be one place where I would like to see a school goal and would work with that principal to develop that.
Thank you.
Dr. Farley, my name's Tammy Norman. I'm the assistant principal at Allert. My question for you is this. Right now, academically, we have a basic framework for the county, how things go. However, our schools have a very different dynamic here. All of our schools' student population, it's very varied. What do you think you could do to differentiate for the schools from the basic framework, just as we expect our teachers to differentiate for our students in the classroom?
Well, I know in looking at your data, I have seen the various numbers at the schools, and I was a little shocked by that. Enrollment at one school was right at at an elementary school was right at 300. Another elementary school had nearly 640 based on the internet and your website. So I was a little taken back by that. But before I could make any rash decisions, I would need to get in and meet with the staff and to meet with school administrators and to see what would best be our plan to differentiate individually. I do know that you all are part of the Tennessee Literacy Implementation Network, and from that work, each one of you are going to get different ideas, and I would trust that you as a building level administrator know how that would look at Allard Elementary compared to York Elementary.
Dr. Farley, Sherry York, principal at Pine Haven Elementary. Question I'd like for you to discuss just a little bit is about supporting your administration team. Can you describe how you would support the administration team, which is building level principals, and in their decisions when parents come to you and they're upset over a decision that we've made, how would you support us as a principal?
Well, in a perfect world, we all would agree with every decision that's made 100% of the time, every day. But unfortunately, we don't live in that perfect world. For this school year alone, I have fielded 198 phone calls from parents. I would say easily 150 of those are issues that parents have had at the elementary school. I may not always have the same opinion or the same thoughts as that administrator that handled that, but a parent would never know that. What I would do is we would work collaboratively with that parent to figure out the best way possible to appease both sides. And then after that situation is handled and put to rest, I would talk to the principal and just say, hey, let's look at it this way, and come up with different solutions. But parents would never, ever know that I disagreed with a decision that any principal made. I would have your back 150%.
Missy Atkins, assistant principal at South Ventures. Mine kind of goes right with Miss Sherry's. What strategies have you used in the past to help manage confrontation, whether that be with parents, community members, teachers, or administrators? And also, just being an effective leader sometimes involves making those hard decisions. Are you willing to make those hard decisions and stand behind your decisions?
I feel like I make hard decisions most days, just like you all do in your job, whether you are an assistant principal, a principal, or a district administrator. The world of education is not an easy job. And I have made hard decisions at each level as well, just like you all do. And once I make my decision, I typically stand firm in that decision. And conflict, unfortunately, is a part of the job. And can you repeat? That was a long question. That's okay. I think I answered most of it, but no, I just want to be sure I answer everything that you ask.
I think you did, but just how you would manage the confrontation, whether it be with community members, parents, educators.
As I stated in my introduction, I am responsive. Of the 198 calls that I have taken this year, most of those calls have been returned within 24 hours. I truly believe that. Sometimes you do want to wait more than 10 minutes when you get a mad call and give them just a little bit of time to calm down. But I do try to take all of my calls and return them within a 24-hour period.
Christy Walker, South Ventures Elementary Principal. My question is just what would be some of your expectations for principals and assistant principals? One expectation that is expected of us right now is 2 hours of walkthroughs a day in the classroom, just as an example. Mm-hmm. So can you tell me what some of your expectations would be of our daily routine?
Well, I do believe walkthroughs are valuable, but I do know that you have lots of other things to go on during the day, and you're probably trying frantically to get all of those first half of your observations in first semester before you go home for Christmas break. So that would be something that I think we would work together collaboratively on. I'm a big a proponent of when I can, I give stakeholders input. You know if 2 hours of walkthrough every day in your building is effective, and if it's getting the results that you feel it needs to get. We might work collaboratively to develop what your daily schedule would be. I do expect you to be the instructional leader of your building, as I expect myself to be the instructional leader of the district.
RTI Coordinator. Can you hear me? My question is, how will you communicate expectations to faculty and staff and give them a voice?
My communications will be written, and I will meet. Again, as I stated earlier, one of my goals would be to be in every school and to meet every employee of all departments within the first 30 days. And I would have written expectations, and I would come to your school and meet with the stakeholders, whether that's a custodian, a teacher assistant, a speech pathologist. It takes all of us to make a successful school system, and everyone is appreciated. So I would want to come and relay those expectations and give them a written copy so they will know exactly what I expect.
Thank you.
Dr. Farley.
Hello, Ms.
Gina
Butler.
Buckner, Elementary Curriculum Supervisor. You know, we have a lot of programs and practices in place, either at the state level or the district level.
Mm-hmm.
If you get this position and you come into office, how will you evaluate the programs and practices that are currently in place to determine their effectiveness and their status moving forward?
So again, I think what we do is we would talk to the supervisors first, just me and the supervisor that's in charge of those programs, and get your thoughts on that, and if you think the benefits, and then talk to principals, and then talk to teachers. There's lots of things these days that's coming down the pike, and all of them are great and grand, but we have to figure out what's best for us and not work our teachers to death, because we do want to be able to retain those teachers.
Thank you.
Is it working? I don't think mine's working.
I don't see your blue light on.
Now is it? Okay. Can you hear me? I'm pretty loud.
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you. It's a teacher voice. I get it.
Dr. Farley, I'm Sandy Connector, pre-K in special education, working at central office among some other positions, but those are the two main ones. Thank you. Okay. My question is, tell me a little bit about your leadership style. And you've talked a little bit about that, but what I mean by that is the expectations of the district leaders that will be in place working under you, working with the principals. How do you work with them along with your communication with them?
I'm a firm believer in communication, and as I stated earlier, relationships. I also am a firm believer in making sure my expectations are clear, and one way you can do that is by writing them down and going over them. So I would definitely do that with district leadership. And as I stated, anytime that I can, I try to get stakeholder input. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if I was fortunate enough to get this job, yes, my name would be the one on the dotted line. But I also realize that I can't make every decision, and I have to have the best people in place, and I have to be able to trust those people to do their jobs. And by getting to know you and letting you know what I expect, I think that would be how that could be accomplished.
Thank you. And I have one more quick one. I work with special populations of students. Tell me a little bit about how the overall picture fits into your goals.
As a principal, my school became known as CDC squared. So we received lots of students in our regular inclusion program that were straight out of CDC. And I believe that all students can learn. They're not all going to score proficient or advanced, but we have to help them to learn and figure out how they can learn. And that's what I would expect of all of my principals and teachers, especially with special populations.
Thank you.
In order to give everybody an opportunity, then I'll ask the central staff if they want to come up, some of them, and ask a question. Then we'll do follow-up questions. Any questions from anybody in the central office? It's back here. All right.
All right. Dr. Farley, my name is Jenny Dixon. I'm a federal programs bookkeeper. I'm dealing with all the COVID money that's come in. So we are in the years of plenty, but the money train's running out. And so just some questions or thoughts about what you would prioritize after the COVID money disappears. Thoughts on that kind of thing?
Well, I think we would need to look and see where we are and what we've used this COVID money for. In looking at Fentress County Schools' budget, it seems like a lot of the money may go to personnel and benefits. So I think we would need to develop a plan for replenishment and recurring cycles such as technology, transportation, and maintenance. And, again, going back to the relationship piece with County Commission, working with them to make sure that whatever we choose to work on specifically, and right off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you what that would be, but develop that relationship so the funding piece would be easier.
Okay, and I can tell from your discussions that you are really interested in being in the schools, but also would you have a daily plan to be in the central office at some point during the day?
Absolutely, every day.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Dr. Farley, Tanya French, I'm the human resources / whatever.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah. My question revolves around snow days and the processes that you would go through. Living in Cumberland County to Fentress County, of course, you would have a dangerous drive on slick days. I'm usually at the office at 5 o'clock in the morning. What would your plan be as far as taking care of the roads? Who's going to go look, who's going to see what's going on and let the public know?
Well, if they are predicting even the slightest possibility of snow, and we know that the meteorologist sometimes is an awesome job to have because you never get in trouble for being wrong. So, but with that being said, if they are predicting snow, obviously that would definitely be a day that I would be staying in Fentress County. I already have some people that I know in the county that would be road watchers for me, as well as probably within the first 6 weeks of being in the position, if I'm chosen, I would have a plan and we would know who would cover what areas of the county and get that report back. And I would hope to make decisions as soon as possible. And I'm an early bird myself, and I'm typically, and my 19-year-old daughter can vouch for this because we were at school every morning by 6 or 6:30, her whole 9 years of elementary school.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Farley, I'm going to ask one more question since Tanya's. I'm sure there's a shortage of subs in Crossville, just like there is here. Do you have a plan in place, or do you have some ideas on how you might help us with that shortage of substitutes?
Well, I think we would need to develop definitely a recruiting plan of some kind, and try to make some incentives. And I'm not sure right off the top of my head what incentives would work. Obviously money, but there's not an endless pot of that. So I think we would have to be creative and try to develop a recruiting plan to recruit more subs. Also, when we do get them here, we want to make sure that they understand, again, what's expected of them. And we want to make sure that once they do come, that they are treated with respect. And if they're not, that is addressed. So they will continue to come back. And I'm not too good to sub if I need to. Probably couldn't do it every day, though.
Anybody else in the audience wants to speak? If not, do we have follow-up questions? We'll start over here.
I have one I'll ask while Ms. Kyla is looking, and I don't think I introduced myself earlier, but I'm Ashley Bilbrey, Vice Principal at York Elementary. Currently, our bus duty coordinator makes more money than our assistant principals. Are you or would you consider looking at the pay scale and possibly make an adjustment? And part two to that is the same with, I think, goes back to Ms. Sherry's question about our assistants and parapros. We're losing a lot of them left and right because they can go to work other places and get paid a lot more money, maybe a lot less stress, just depending on the job. So I think both of those are a couple, especially the parapros, is why we're losing them. And it goes back to the subs, why we can't get subs, that kind of thing. So what plan Or how do you feel like that, what we could do to fix that?
Obviously, that is something that needs to be fixed. And I'll be honest with you, I had no idea. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. Regardless of how this turns out, thank you for letting me know that. Obviously, that's not going to be something that could be fixed overnight. That might be a year goal if I'm chosen as this position, a year goal to work on to figure out how we could equalize that pay. And as far as teachers' assistants, I do understand that. We're having the same issues where I'm at currently. Just imagine day-to-day school without a teacher assistant. They are very, very valuable. And we would definitely, again, you have to be creative sometimes in how you can manage the resources that you have. But I think that would be something to definitely look at and start looking at that quickly, but it's going to take time to fix that. But it is definitely something I feel that needs to be fixed.
I know in some cases when workload gets heavy, morale gets low. How do you, what's some suggestions that you have to maybe, if you were in this role as director, to help boost that back up to where, not to say that they dread coming to work, but enjoy it more, lighten that load a little bit? What's some suggestions on getting that morale back up?
Again, I think relationships is a big piece, not only for a teacher, but for a building level principal or a director of schools. I am in the schools often, and it may not seem like a huge gesture, but when you go to somebody and you thank them, that does mean a lot.
Yes.
There's lots of other things we could do. I'm sure Blue Jean Days would probably be greatly appreciated. Maybe some early outs or some late ins, different things like that would also be beneficial. But until I get here and know, I couldn't lay my finger on anything specific. But the relationship piece to me is huge. And I have people that I know definitely have my back because they know I care about them. Mm-hmm. And if I was chosen for this job, then you all would be my extended family, and I would care for you the same as I care for the people that work for me now.
Thank
you. Dr. Farley, just one more thing. What is your stance on corporal punishment? And if you don't agree with it, then what do you think would be a good alternative consequence?
Well, as a principal and as an assistant principal, I have used corporal punishment. It has been a day or two since I have done that. I don't have a problem with corporal punishment. We always had parents to sign saying that they agreed with that, and we often called the parent before we did it to make sure that they still hadn't changed their mind, and there was a witness. So I think if you take those necessary precautions, that sometimes that can be a beneficial means of discipline. Now, we would need to look at how many times we're, paddling a student if that is something that we choose to do, and to find out if it is the most effective and is it really working.
Dr. Farley, in your present job in Cumberland County, no doubt there's challenges. Will you share with the group one success story or a celebration?
So I had a parent call me the 10 o'clock day. She's a single mom. She's just moved to Cumberland County from California. And she had no family there and limited friends. She works out of county. And she had just discovered that day that with her job, she was not going to be able to pick her child up and get it off the bus. Our policy is we will not drop off if a parent's not there, an adult is not there. So she... procedures in going back back to policy. If you are granted out of zone, you can't ride a bus. So she had 2 shots against her. After about a 30-minute conversation the first day, she and I tried to brainstorm different ideas, different agencies she could reach out to for help. I contacted food services. I talked to people about high school kids. Long story short, we finally worked out an agreement with transportation. So instead of them changing her bus time or the load of the bus she rode and her being the only one, we were able to work out where she rode the entire route with a bus driver. She went back to the transportation garage, and her mom was able to drive straight from work with no delays and get there and pick her up in time. And, with someone being from California, Mom was really taken back that I had worked with her to try to come up with something, especially after about 3 days of phone calls and probably about an hour's time in talking to her.
Thank you.
Dr. Farley, my question has to do a little bit with the budget. I'm sure you're well aware Fentress County is not in the same financial position as Cumberland County. We don't have the tax revenue. We just don't have the number of people here. How do you think that will affect your budgeting, and have you been involved with the budget there? And what are some things you think you will have to take into consideration coming into a system with a much smaller budget than Cumberland County has?
As far as budgeting, I deal with a VPK budget, and it is a little bit over $1 million, and it is all grant funded. Cumberland County pitches in, and they just have started that within the last 3 years, an additional $11,000. The last pre-K classroom in Cumberland County was added in the 2006-2007. So, we're looking at 14-year-old classrooms. So we have to be creative, and we have to begin, and that's kind of what I alluded to a little bit earlier. We would have to definitely develop a technology plan, a maintenance plan, and a transportation plan, and stretch those items out. Obviously, we would, again, need to do a needs assessment and find out what we need and put those needs up at the top of the list. As far as developing the county budget, that's not something that I primarily deal with, the whole budget. I just deal with my VPK budget, and it's pretty close as far as like the amount, as I said, on personnel and the additionals. So I'm kind of used to trying to stretch that dollar and be creative.
Dr. Farley, can you tell us a little bit about how your summer camp went last summer? Some successes and some challenges that you had. We're in the early stages of planning now.
Success number 1, they all survived. Success number 2, a large portion, and right off, I do apologize, that wasn't something I was really closely related to working with. But most of the students that attended, and I would say probably 60%, did show gains on the universal screener that they came in and that they left on. And what we used as that universal screener was STAR. Some challenges was finding people to work it. Like I said, I wasn't involved heavily, but I do know, it is a learning curve that I've heard them talk about. And that would, if I'm chosen for this job, that would definitely be something that I would be willing to work with you all even before the July 1 date starts, to make sure that would be a success, because I think that would be huge as a starting out piece for the upcoming school year.
Thank you.
I have one more question. Tell me some thoughts on zoning. What do you think about zoning in our county for our schools? I know you started out and you talked about, you noticed that some schools were smaller than others, so what are your thoughts on zoning?
Zoning, I do believe, could be an additional fund finder. And what I'm saying as far as that goes is that would help you to make sure that we have the proper number of teachers to match the proper number of students. And if you map that out countywide and you look at that and you ration out the communities to the community school in which they belonged, I think that that could be a way to secure additional funds. I deal with zoning in my current job. The out-of-zone window opens April the 1st, and it goes through the first 20 days of after the first full day of school. They have a out-of-zone application and a procedure that's in place, and if they are denied, they can appeal that decision. And most of that, it does come, unfortunately, to me. And numbers is one thing that we do look at close, not only numbers of the students in the school, but also teacher numbers. It's not an easy thing to undertake, and it does cause lots of hard feelings and lots of mad families. But I think the benefits truly outweigh the negatives.
So you talked about you take up applications in April and you go until 20 days after the first full day of school.
Mm-hmm.
So do those students stay at the school that they're at? What happens if it's a kindergarten student going to a new school and it's their first year? Where do they start their school year? And then do you up and move that child 20 days into school?
We have an application process, as I said, but to a kindergartner coming in, they have to apply to their zoned school. Now, I said that the window is open 20 days. However, those decisions are primarily made. This year, the first full day of school was on a Wednesday. I notified all of the parents that had completed the reconsideration by the following Monday. So they're not out the full 20 days. Those decisions are made pretty quickly. Mm-hmm.
I got one more question, if you
Yes,
don't.
sir.
Professional development.
Mm-hmm.
We all have to have it. We all receive it continuously. In your thoughts on receiving professional development, best practice, do you think that should be the teachers should receive that before school, after school, before the school year starts, after school, like maybe take half a day, the kids go home, teachers receive that, or teachers called out of class, and of course there's a sub issue at that,
Right.
and hopefully we have enough subs to cover those classes. So which route do you think would be the best practice for professional development?
Obviously, obtaining some in the summer is a plus.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, too, that, again, is going to go back to the teachers and what they feel and what they think. And that's going to change year to year based on what they need.
True.
Because, they may have a area of refinement and problem solving this year, and we provide them all the professional development they need. And then next year, their refinement may be in questioning.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would vary from year to year. I'm really not a fan, although we've had to do that some in Cumberland County this school year, pulling them out because, like you said, we can't find subs.
Mm-hmm.
So that would probably be my least favorite. But again, I would definitely let principals, assistant principals, district supervisors, and teachers make the decision of the best as far as during the school year.
As far as either letting the kids go home and having the teachers plan, or
and sometimes, do you all ever have, like, when you return from winter break, like if it's January the 5th, you come back, the students return, do you all ever have a day where January 4th the teachers would return?
No.
And that's a good possibility too. And especially that time of year, because you've made it halfway through and you know what you need to work on, and you have an idea of how you're wanting to make it through, or what kind of plan you're wanting to make it through for the rest of the year. So I think that would definitely be a good day to get everybody back together.
I've got one more question. Gary, I'm sorry. So talk to us just a little bit. You talked a minute ago, like some motivation for teachers and raising morale. You talked about like Jean Day. Talk to us a little bit about dress code policy for teachers. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we would always, and first foremost, go to board policy. And I think we would definitely need to have a dress code for students, but also one for staff as well.
Any other questions from either the panel or the audience?
I'm Tyler Arms. I'm the finance director. I'm sorry, I wasn't real sure where my questions would fall in, but you've actually answered quite a few of them dealing with budget here. We are Act 81, very similar to Cumberland County's under the same act, so we're centralized, working within the finance office. So how would you see yourself working closely with the finance office? We work closely with your bookkeepers, but you have a few of them here, but how would you see your involvement with that?
My involvement with working in the day-to-day.
Yes, within your bookkeepers and your finance office.
Okay. Well, I would make sure that I was up to date and aware of your purchasing policy with the board, which is 2.805 and 2.8053, which is teacher order policy, and 2.807, which is requisitions. I would need to make sure that I reviewed those and knew exactly what was up on that, as well as review the Tennessee Internal School Uniform Accounting Manual. And I would definitely want to develop a written procedure for teachers and principals and supervisors to follow, and I would want to be a part of that, and I think we would need to share that with our teachers, and also maybe develop a policy manual or a procedure manual to go with our policy, where we have all of those forms in a centralized place. I think that would just make it easier, and I would also want to make sure that all of the school system bookkeepers met with the expectations which are set up by your finance department as well as the school system.
One more question, and this pertains to budgeting. I know that you said your experience is mainly in managing a budget, probably not as much formulating a budget of this size. I think they're looking at roughly $19 to $20 million what they run a year here. Probably a little less than half of Cumberland County overall. But as far as involvement within the budgeting process, I believe our policy states that the director will formulate the budget, present it to the board. I believe it's what the board policy is. But how would you consider involvement from individual schools and individual departments?
Absolutely.
Into that budgeting process?
I think what we would need to do is we would need to yearly, I would expect to do this yearly, is to reach out to the schools and look and see their needs for that year, especially if they have, a big ticket item, like if they're wanting to fence their playground or, playground equipment. But get their needs assessment, get input from them. And then I think we would need to start with the school board and work starting probably in May or June to begin to look at those budgets and those needs from the schools and develop our plan going forward to make sure that we have that ready to present to County Commission.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else in the audience from central office, central staff? Anybody else got a question? Anybody else? Anybody else on the panel? Got any questions? If not, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you for being here. And then once that you all started talking, I did realize that I did know more of you than I thought I did. And again, thank you for coming up here and being next to me. I truly appreciate that. As I stated earlier, I do believe that the director of schools should be transparent. I do believe that they should be consistent. I do believe that they should be responsive and fair in all of their dealings. I can assure you that nobody will outwork me and that I will communicate clearly my expectations to all stakeholders and communicate frequently. I will be in your buildings and will be a fixture that people see and know who I am. And I would love the opportunity to get to work with each one of you.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and close out this section, this block here. If you would, please fill out your surveys and turn them in back there. And thank you all very much. We'll meet again at 2 p.m. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I appreciate our community leaders that came out this afternoon for a 2 o'clock session. I I would encourage you that we have surveys at the back, should have been handed out to you already. Before you leave this afternoon, please fill that survey out and put it in an appropriate box at the back as you leave. Today we're interviewing Miss Rebecca Farley for the position of Superintendent of Schools for Fentress County. And I'll open this one up like I did the last one. We'll give her an opportunity to tell us a little bit about herself to you all, and then we'll start at the left of the table and go around. We'll ask one round of questions, and then we'll have a follow-up question. If anybody from the audience wants to speak, we'll let them speak also. So with that, Ms. Farley, I'll turn it over to you.
So it is 5 after 2, and I do apologize if I'm the reason we're late. There's a group of principals in the room next door, and they had to ask me one more burning question, so I went to see what they needed. So I do apologize for being late. My name is Rebecca Farley, and I appreciate you being here and taking your time today to come and meet me. I am a product of Fentress County Schools. I attended grades kindergarten through 6th grade at Grimsley Elementary and 7th through 12 at Clark Range High School. I was blessed to have many excellent teachers and opportunities coming out of this school system. Right after high school, I did not go into education, but ended up there. Graduated from Tennessee Tech in 1999. I taught 7th grade math for 6 years at North Cumberland and was an assistant principal there for 1. I was a principal at Crab Orchard Elementary for 10 years. And while I was there, I was fortunate enough to work with a very dedicated group of people. And during that time, many positive changes occurred. Our school was recognized by the Educator Consumer Foundation for having the second highest student gains on state standardized tests for the Middle Tennessee region. So that was a huge honor for us. During that time at Crab Orchard, I also received my doctorate. And in 2017, I was... No worries. In 2017, I was named Supervisor of Instruction for Cumberland County Schools and was nominated as Supervisor for Cumberland County, Supervisor of the Year for Cumberland County in 2020, where I was a state finalist representing the Upper Cumberland region. I am married. My husband is the Technology Director for Cumberland County Schools. My son attends Tennessee Tech, and my daughter attends Middle Tennessee State. And I have the cutest Maltipoo puppy that you have ever seen, who's very protective of me. And I enjoy running. And I also have completed a marathon in 2018, getting ready to start training for another one in December of 2022. I also enjoy cross-stitching, and I recently completed a 12-picture collection that I started over 20 years ago. In my spare time, I do teach master's level classes and graduate level classes for South College in Knoxville. I believe that the director of schools is the instructional leader for the school system. I also believe that the director of schools should be transparent, consistent, responsive, and fair in all of their dealings. I believe that the director should communicate frequently with all stakeholders, and obviously elected officials would definitely be a huge stakeholder for the school system. I also believe that the experience that I have being a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and a district administrator would be a huge benefit for the school system. From hearing about this brief introduction of my personal and professional life, I think one can see that I am dedicated and determined when I set my mind to something. I think the first question is yours, Mr. Arms.
I had the opportunity to ask some questions that I had in the previous session, but I guess more of a community involvement question with you residing outside of the county. How do you feel you can overcome that difficulty of community involvement?
Well, I know you said that you came in late, so that question was asked earlier. When I thought about applying for this job, as I stated, I'm from here. I grew up here, lived here most of my life. And then after my dad died in 99, I moved back for a brief period of time. So I have lots of friends and family here. And before I even thought about applying, I reached out to those family members. And I would plan on being here 2 to 3, if not 4 nights a week because I believe that community involvement is a piece of this job. And it's not just in the school systems. I do believe that that is important, being in the school system, being at ball games, being at parent meetings, being at school band performances. I think all that's important, but also being at county commission meetings, because we will establish a working relationship. And me being here and knowing how you deal with things and what your dealings are would be very important. So I don't think that would be a problem at all, because I would make myself visible in the community.
Ms. Farley, I've got a question, but I want to thank you first for taking interest in this position and helping our board and helping our school system. Something I would like to ask, kind of piggyback off something Tyler said, is how would you be involved with like extracurricular activities outside of the school system and how would you promote those, such as sports and things like that?
Many, many, many years ago, I played basketball at Clark Range High School. And I do know the benefits as an administrator in a school system that athletics brings to the students' lives. So I think the extracurricular activities is huge. Not just sports, but also I was a very, very active member in the Clark Range chapter of FFA, again, a few years back. But I do know the importance of those, and I would definitely support those groups, whether it be sports or extracurricular, anytime that I can and am invited to participate in things that they have, I would definitely be there. I think it would be very important of me to celebrate their successes in any way that I can, whether that's recognizing students that's done a job well done at a board meeting or going to the classroom and recognizing them in their classroom. But I feel extracurricular is very important, and I would be visible in the school system and community.
And being with us today and answering some questions. My concern is more about the students themselves. What is your plans for working with them, either through the county or through the state or things like that?
Well, as I stated earlier with the other group, here we are in 2021, and I feel that the 3 R's are still important. Today, they're not so much reading, writing, and arithmetic. Those are still important. But the most important pieces are relationships, rigor, and relevance. And I believe that we need to make sure that all of our students are valued and feel valued and appreciated by their teacher. I think that is step 1 for taking care of our students in Fentress County. And I think once we have that down, then we can focus on the rigor and getting our academics where they need to be. Because if you look at our achievement test scores, they might not be exactly where we need to be. So that would definitely be something that I would work with building principals and district administration on getting us to where we need to be and making sure that we have relevant lessons that mean something to our students in their lives.
Once again, thank you for taking interest in our schools and our kids and being and applying for this job. We do appreciate that. My question, I don't know what was asked before, so this may be a repeat. I don't know. We've been through unprecedented times in the last few years with this pandemic, and our kids have suffered. They're behind. Speaking as a spouse of an educator, our teachers are stressed. They're having a hard time trying to do what they don't know what to do to get them up there. So I guess thinking about all those things, all the people that's affected by this pandemic, what's some things you think that we can do or that you could bring to the table that would help get our kids, get them back up to where the levels where they need to be, and also to help the teachers and, with their anxieties and difficulties they've gotten doing that, I guess.
Well, I think we would definitely need to map out a plan. And unfortunately, it didn't take us very long to get behind, but it is going to take us a little while to get caught up. So I think we would need to map out a plan as to goals, measurable goals along the way, and make those realistic goals. I think everybody again, being transparent in my dealings, I think everyone needs to know exactly what those goals are. I do know in talking with Ms. Buckner that Fentress County is going to do a tutoring program this summer, a summer camp. You will see some gains there. It's amazing. The problem is getting people to work it. But you will see gains there. I do know that they are also being a part of the all-core tutoring that's coming down from the state. That will help students get caught up as well. Focusing on the teacher aspect, again, I think we develop those small goals and begin to work on that. But I think we need to let everybody know what those goals are and the steps that we will take and the expectations to get there.
Thank you.
Just before the meeting began at 1 p.m., the school attorney said to me, "We have 3 candidates, and every one of them are excellent. So there's, this is a really unique opportunity that we have, and we thank you again for applying." And I was able to listen to all that you said during the first half of the meeting. You have a wonderful approach to education. But let me talk just a moment about post-secondary education. I think just shortly after Governor Bill Lee took office, one thing that was high on his agenda was vocational education, and he toured the state and even came here to Fentress County. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but this county has plans in the future, very near future, to build a vocational education building and facility here, and allow that to not only benefit students, but adults, and in training the adults. And in a rural community like this, vocational education is just so important. There's been some concern about mixing student population with adult population in that type of environment, but only just a little. What are your thoughts on post-secondary education in a rural community like ours? And would you be in favor of continuing to support a program to get a VOTEC school here in this county?
Absolutely. I think that would be a huge, huge plus for Fentress County. And I can tell you, I had a child, my daughter, who attended every day of school from kindergarten through 8th grade with me. I was her elementary principal. And by the end of our 9 years, she was tired of going to school with me. I told her I was going to try to get to the high school, and you know how feisty little teenagers can be. She put that hand on that hip, and she stuck that finger out and said, "Oh, no, you're not either." But this was a child that hated school. She was there. We arrived at school between 6 and 6:30 every morning, and if I had a meeting, she was there. If we had a ball game, she was there. She put in the exact number of hours that I did. Not by her own choosing, but she did. She hated school. She graduated early, and she enrolled in a TCAT. And she tried. She went to school. She earned a certificate in doing nails and manicures. But once she got out, she found that wasn't for her. But it was amazing to see her and the experiences she gained and the confidence that she gained and how much she grew from a graduating senior to a young adult and the responsibilities that she took on. So I think that vocational opportunity will be amazing for Fentress County students. And way back when I attended Clark Range High School, that was a huge concern as well. You mixing 7th and 8th graders with 9th through 12th graders, but that can be managed. That's just a procedural thing, and that would be something that I think we would definitely need to work on if that's a concern. But it would be a huge advantage for both parties.
Kevin sort of touched on my question, but my question to you is, what are your thoughts regarding career and technical education, and what are your plans to continue supporting our CTE programs so that we as a community can retain our students and their skills in Fentress County post-secondary?
Huge fan of CTE classes. As I stated, years ago, I was an active member of the Clark Range FFA chapter. I also had home ec, but I didn't excel in that as well as I did the FFA activities, but absolutely love them. I would definitely strive to ensure that we have as many career clusters as we can staff at the school level to get more students involved and prepare them. Would not be opposed to working, and I think the vocational building would be a huge asset in trying to develop some dual enrollment for students should they choose to go into college in one of those CTE fields. I think that would only benefit them. And again, just being visible and supportive of them when they're at their competitions and recognizing and celebrating their successes.
And my second question to you is, of course, I was in FCCLA whenever I was in high school at Clark Range, and I worked hand in hand with Cumberland County. And I understand that their FCCLA program also offers their programs to their elementary schools. Is there a way or a solution that you would have to offer those to our elementary schools here in Fentress County? And if so, how would you go about doing so?
Sure. As a principal at an elementary school and as an assistant at an elementary school, we had several activities that we provided. The issue is finding a sponsor that's willing, and the activities, a lot of them occurred before school or after school, and securing parent rides and transportation for those littlest ones, because a lot of them, the only way they can get home is through the bus. So definitely would be in favor of doing that, and would be happy to work with anyone who would want to bring that forward.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hi. Sorry for walking in late. I'm Wendy
fine.
Bradfield. I'm representing the Fentress County Education Association. And my first question would be, we have a lot of veteran teachers, just teachers who have been here for quite a few years, who are leaving our community. They're leaving our school system to go into other school systems. And it's not just because we know we can make more other places, but due to the increase in demands in the classroom, outside of the classroom, various other demands. But basically, what can you do, or what would you do to retain these teachers, these veteran teachers, and keep them in our community and keep them involved?
Teacher retention is huge, and I am a true fan of involving stakeholders and gathering their input whenever I can. I think that we would definitely need to talk to this group. If there's, if we see, I'm a data person too, so I'd like to see the data and see, is it teachers with 25 plus years experience, or is it teachers at the elementary level compared to the high school? I would definitely like to see the data of that, and would love to meet with these teachers and see what we can do to make sure we keep those people here, because oftentimes those teachers are invaluable because they have the relationship piece that I feel is so important, because they had this student's mom or this student's dad, and they know the family and know that dynamics, and that is huge in reaching students.
It's interesting you mentioned data and the individual students. Sometimes teachers are getting frustrated because we're looking at data so much. I think you understand.
Yes,
and they'd like to be able to say, hey, that data has a face. And, are you open to their suggestions, their ideas, that maybe the data might not necessarily show?
Right. And unfortunately, the state chooses to recognize and celebrate or notice a school based on that data. So unfortunately, we do have to address that elephant in the room. But I have been in a building that was high poverty, and it was similar to what your all situation is. I know you've been a reward school 4 out of the last 5 years, but when you look at your achievement piece, it's a little bit low. But you're making the gains. It just takes time to get there. So I do understand that data is a piece, but I think too, when you develop goals and you collaboratively develop your goals, and you give exact and consistent steps and goals to reach those goals, I think we all would have ownership because we work together to develop those goals. And I think too that would help teachers putting a face to that data, and it would be a happy balance.
this time, we'll start over here again at the left. If we have any follow-up questions, we'll go ahead and open it up for that. So we'll go, anybody might have a follow-up question?
Yeah, so, can you hear me? So, Ms. Farley, you spoke about your teacher retention, and I heard that in the previous section before as well. So Fentress County Board of Education is one of, if not the largest employer in the county, which affects a lot of household incomes around here. And there's a lot of, I don't know what the word you'd use, community engagement, community interest within our Board of Education, of course, with our children. And you speak of transparency as well. So what exactly does transparency mean to you, and what plans do you have to be transparent for not only the community, but the employees as well?
I believe in clear communication. And when I say transparency, I mean transparency in all of my dealings. What I say, I mean, and I follow through with that, and you would be able to see that in my everyday, day-to-day dealings. And I do understand the importance of the budgeting, and would definitely want to be transparent in that. You know, sometimes you hear of systems and directors hiding money here, hiding money there. Definitely want to work collaboratively with the board and county commission to make sure that we provide the best that we can for our teachers in order to retain them. You know, that's not going to be something that can be fixed just like that. That's going to take some time, and it will definitely need a detailed plan. And I would want to be clear in that plan and have each step laid out and share that with everybody that needs to be aware of that. That, to me, that's what transparency would be.
Once again, kind of to piggyback off Miss Wendy and Tyler, tell us a couple of things that you would do to build relationships and show support for the staff that you have, the teachers you have, your administrative principals, assistant principals, and what you would do to promote Fentress County schools to teachers outside this area looking for a job.
Well, a huge piece is relationships. And I would want to be in every school within the first 30 days, and I would want to meet every employee. No matter what they do, I would want to meet them. I would also share with them my expectations, not only orally, but have them written down so they would know what they can expect of me, and what I expect of them. And how I would promote, I would want Fentress County schools to go to these career fairs. Tennessee Tech offers one, MTSU offers one. I would definitely want us to go and promote our county and the things that we have to offer. I think, too, the relationship piece is huge. And it seems like such a small thing, but being in a school and stopping and talking to a teacher assistant about their husband who's just had surgery and following up with a card or a phone call or an email goes a long, long way. And I have that relationship, and I would expect to build that relationship here as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, back to the students and the buildings, the schools. How's your feelings on repair and all of that for the schools?
So we talked earlier with the principals about budgets and reoccurring expenses such as technology and building and transportation. So I think we would definitely need to set aside a piece of the budget to address those reoccurring expenses. However, I think how we arrive at what needs the most attention is based on input from the principals and the appropriate supervisors, and going and seeing myself what they're saying needs to be done. And I think we would develop a priority list from that and work to those that have the highest needs first.
I guess kind of follow up to where we've got the children that's behind. I think the school system has made attempts to do some things. They've had the summer camp last year, and they're working on a STEM program, I think, to help do some things for some kids. And I just recently had an employee talk to me about this, so that's why I'm asking it. But so she's had a child that has been a little bit behind, and you know, you do all these things, and the kid starts getting burned out. Then, so you know, is there anything else they can do besides some of these after school programs? Is there more time that they can? And I know that teachers are limited on how much time they have in the classroom to deal one-on-one, but is there anything else that they could do in that way? I think, you know, sometimes that helps more, I think, than, you know, I don't, but.
I think what you have to do there is think outside the box. And I think that would definitely be an area we could look at. You know, maybe a child might not mind doing something. If, again, finding the staff to staff it would be one thing, but maybe we could provide opportunities on a Saturday or a Saturday afternoon. And just, again, finding the staff to do that instead of doing 4 weeks in the summer, or 6 weeks in the summer, or 8 weeks in the summer, or 3 days after school. I think you just have to think outside the box. And again, you have to make sure you have staff to staff it, and you have to have interest in the students. But I think that would definitely be something we would need to gauge stakeholders' input on, as well as their willingness to participate.
Thank you.
This next question is a very sensitive question, but I think it needs to be addressed. You are from this county, and you are living in a neighboring county. You understand this area, a very rural area, but we're in the South and we're in the Bible Belt. And we all know what took place back in May of last year in Loudoun County, Virginia, a situation where you have a student that I think they're now calling it gender fluid, but a transgender student that would demand to use a facility that is more acquainted with their gender desire. How do you plan to address, should you get this position, do you have any plans or any thoughts about how you would handle that situation in this rural school system?
Well, I would definitely work with the board to develop, and this would be long-term, obviously, work with the board to develop policies and procedures to guide our principals on addressing that. In the short time, obviously we would provide that student a restroom to use in which they feel comfortable with, and try to get that procedure in place so everybody knows, and it's not we're singling one student out, because you don't want to single that student out either. So we've got to find that balance, and I think, too, we would reach out to TSBA and get guidance from them. And, again, you're just transparent and clear, and communicate that to the community as to what you're doing to better serve our students.
Can you give us an example of a problem in which you were faced with within your career, and what was your solution to fix that said problem?
So at Crab Orchard Elementary School, I dealt with a building that was 40-plus years old. It had major issues and major sewage issues. If you went to that school compared to other schools in the county, students weren't afforded the same building opportunities. So I began to gather community support, and I would do school tours, and I would take pictures and share those with community members, county commission board members when they ask. And I'm happy to say that in October of 2019, Crab Orchard Elementary School students got to move into a brand new building. And the reason they got to move into a brand new building is not just because of what I done, but that community came together and they wanted what was fair and consistent for those students and staff.
We've talked about stakeholders' input a couple of times. What are some ways that you would involve stakeholders specifically? I think about our board meetings. Are you in favor of always having a live broadcast? Are you in favor of allowing parents to come in and have their 5 minutes of questions? at each board meeting, or what are just some specific ways that you would involve?
Me personally, I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I think that would be something that myself and the board would decide on, the guidelines for allowing public to come to the meetings and establish those guidelines that we would expect those to follow. How I gain stakeholder input often, and it's very, very simple, is a survey. And in the times we live in and rural communities, some people have really, really good internet and some people have really, really bad. So I'm not opposed to paper and pencil, or I'm not opposed to Google Forms. Whatever is best. I've sat and tallied many a day data and wouldn't care a bit to do that if I needed to. But surveys are huge for me.
All right, has anybody else got any questions of Dr. Farley? Anybody from the audience? If not, do you have any closing comments before we end this session?
Thank you for coming and taking your time to meet me. I greatly appreciate that. As I said earlier, I believe that a director of schools should be transparent, consistent, and responsive and fair in all of their dealings. And I believe that with my experience as a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and a district supervisor, that I have many things that I could offer Fentress County Schools and would love the opportunity to do that.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for sitting and asking questions. We'll end this session and we'll be back in session again at 3:15. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go ahead and get this session started. This one's with faculty and staff, and apologize for the delay. We was waiting for a few more people to come in from the school system. How we'll do this is let Dr. Farley tell us a little bit about herself, and then I'm going to let Dr. Shermack, he's wanting to come up and say just a few words. He's got to get back to the office right quick, and then we'll start over at the left side of the table and go around, okay? So I'll turn it over to you.
Does he need to go first?
No, go ahead and
Okay.
make the intro, and then we'll let him talk.
For those of you that have heard this for the third time, my apologies, okay? Thank you for coming to meet me today. I truly appreciate that and the time that you are putting into this. My name is Rebecca Farley, and I am a product of Fentress County Schools. For grades kindergarten through 6, I attended Grimsley Elementary, and 7 through 12, I attended Clark Range High School. I was blessed to have awesome teachers and opportunities as part of the school system. After I graduated high school, I didn't immediately go into education, but I did graduate from Tennessee Tech in May of 1999. I began my teaching career at North Cumberland Elementary School in Crossville. I taught 7th grade math there for 6 years, and I served as an assistant principal there for 1 year. I was principal at Crab Orchard Elementary School for 10 years and had the opportunity to work with a lot of dedicated people at that time. And we made lots of positive changes in that building. One of them was the school was a recipient of the Educator Consumer Foundation Award for having the second highest student gains in Middle Tennessee on our state standardized test that year. During that time, I also completed my doctorate. In 2017, I was named Supervisor of Instruction, and I did represent the Upper Cumberland region as a state finalist for Supervisor of the Year in 2020 after being selected at the local level by my fellow administrators, which I found to be a huge honor. And I am married. My husband is the Director of Technology for Cumberland County Schools. My son attends Tennessee Tech. My daughter attends Middle Tennessee State. And I have the cutest Maltipoo puppy that you have ever seen, and he's very protective of me. I enjoy running, and I completed my first marathon in 2018. Have plans to do another one in December of 2022. And I also enjoy cross-stitching, and recently I completed a 12-picture collection that I started over 20 years ago. In my spare time, I teach graduate-level classes for South College. I do believe that the director of schools is the instructional leader of the system. I also believe that the director of schools should be transparent, consistent, responsive, and fair in all of their dealings. I believe that they should communicate often with stakeholders and get their input as often as they can. I believe that my experience as a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and district administrator would be a valuable asset to me if I were to be chosen for the director of schools. I think from hearing briefly about my professional and personal life, you can tell that I am dedicated and determined and would bring that also to the job. I'm ready, sir. I'm good, sir. How about you?
All right. My name's
Again,
Kevin.
I apologize about all of the mix-up with the place
No,
and everything.
That's my doing, I'm sure. I don't really have a specific question, but I will say is you had a very nice introduction. You mentioned being a leader, and what I have found in my narrow experience from seeing here the past several years since 2010 is that the status quo here is not necessarily good, or at least good enough. And if you're going to be a leader, I'd be interested in knowing what is it you'll be able to do with shaking up that status quo a little bit, making things more challenging and better, I guess, without throwing more tests at the kids, without basically pummeling the teachers with more work. You have budget concerns wherever you go.
Mm-hmm.
You have small town politics wherever you go. You're going to have the same problems you do see in a bigger city that you will here. But I guess summarize how you're going to shake up a little bit of a status quo here. Because honestly, from what I've seen, it needs to be shaken a little bit.
Well, I think you have to start with a clear vision and mission as to where you're going to go and to how you're going to get there. And I think that's not something that I would develop by myself. I think that would be something that I would involve principals in, teachers in, community members in, anybody that's a stakeholder in the school system. I think I would have to involve them, get their input. And I agree with you. We don't need to add more to teachers. We don't need to add more to students, but we do need to be able to get more out of both of them. And I think we would look at the programs that we currently have in place, see what's working, what's yielding the best results. And again, that's going to fall back to principals, district leaders, as well as teachers to see what they think is benefiting and make sure that our teachers have that relationship piece with our students. And we would focus on what we're getting the biggest bang for our buck, and those items that we think are most effective and most efficient, that's what we would go with, and we would develop those vision and missions clearly around those.
Generalized response, that's great. Everything I say or you said I agree with. Make the assumption nobody else is going to change. Make the assumption that maybe you're going to have to make people change a little bit. What are you going to have them change? See some of the problems that this place has.
Well,
what would you change?
I would need to be in the schools, become familiar with the individual schools and know what needs to be changed at every school, because I don't think, while apparently you think that there's some issues that we need to address, I don't think every school is going to have the same problems. So we would need to analyze those individual schools to see what the problems were, to develop a plan to make it better. And if we have to shake up things, then, you know, things would have to be shook up from that point.
Okay. I hope you can do that.
I do too, and would love the opportunity to.
All right. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank
Sorry
you.
for coming at the wrong time, guys. I was given bad information. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
I'm Anita Johnson, and I teach at York Elementary. And my question is, our district has a very strict... It's on. Okay, sorry. I teach at York Elementary. My name's Anita Johnson. I teach 4th and 5th grade math. And my question is, our district has a very strict pacing guide policy. If elected, do you plan to continue this policy, or how will you implement instructional pacing?
So I was fortunate to have the opportunity. I've worked with 2 different pacing guides, and would love to have the opportunity to work with you all on your pacing guides. One way that I did that was years ago when I worked with a math pacing guide. I reached out to the teachers. I'm a real big fan of surveys, so I reached out to them, asked them how many days they spent on each chapter, and did an average of all of each teacher, each grade level, and that's how we arrived at the pacing for our math curriculum. We currently use Go Math. This summer, I had the opportunity to work with K-12 teachers revising our ELA pacing guide, and how we did that was we sat around a table, small groups of anybody that attended the summer in-service, and we talked about how many days we did each unit, and we had the pausing points days, and we tried to add fun days for culminating activities. So I think you have to get the teacher input because they're the ones that's there. I really like to see schools, especially the same schools, being the same grade levels. If there's more than one teacher at that grade level being on this same topic. In Cumberland County, we have a very transient population, and I know we try to stay within a few days, but sometimes that doesn't happen, and life happens not only in the lives of students but teachers. So I would like for it to be as strict as possible, but I do realize sometimes life gets in the way. But I would love the opportunity to work with teachers and revise that and get their input and feedback if it needs to be changed.
All right. My name is Brandon Crouch, and I'm working at South Fentress Elementary. I do have some questions from others that were not able to attend. So if I look at my phone, I apologize. I'm just reading the question. So first question, when hiring a new employee, what is the role of the board, the superintendent, and school faculty members?
Well, I would first double check the board policy and see what our policy and procedures say for hiring. I think a teacher should be selected by the building level principal and make sure that that person is a good fit. As a principal, I personally hired teachers, and I did try to, when I could, bring in teachers that they would be working with to see if they're a good fit. A role and responsibility of the board is to hire the director of schools, and then that director of schools works with the hiring of the school personnel, and that would be a job that I would put on the principal. I always included them myself personally, yes, to see if someone's a good fit. Because, personalities unfortunately sometimes clash immediately in an interview. I have seen that, and it's not a pretty thing. And you don't want to put students in that position if you know that that person's not a good fit. So I feel, yes, teachers should be included in that.
Okay. I too am going to ask some questions that have been submitted from different teachers throughout the system. The first one, currently our school system seems to be micromanaging teachers, leaving them with little opportunities for their own creativity in their lessons. Should you become director, will this practice continue?
So I know that you all have adopted CKLA, Core Knowledge Language Arts curriculum. And in some aspects, I do realize that that is kind of limiting, and doesn't always give the teacher free rein as to all of the educational decisions. Where I would give the teacher the autonomy to choose and to be creative and to share their creative side would, if I had the opportunity to work with teachers in developing pacing guides, to add those culminating activities during pausing point days, and to also do unit novel studies and unit studies whenever we maybe have a break, right before the winter break or coming back from winter break, see how the pacing allows. In math, it's kind of up in the air at this point because I know we're getting ready to adopt a new curriculum. So I would just need to wait and see what the county chose as their curriculum as to how we could try to provide the teachers as much autonomy as possible.
This one is just from me. Since you mentioned choosing a curriculum, I know a lot of times they like to choose a same curriculum for K through 8, but do you believe it always needs to be the exact same curriculum, exact same publishing company, for example, for all K through 8? Or do you feel that maybe middle school is a whole different beast and maybe could benefit from a different curriculum?
I think it just depends on the curriculum. Sometimes K-8 is great because the publisher has really worked to establish those guidelines and the progression from grade to grade. And sometimes that's not the best. So I think it really depends on what you're adopting and the options that you have.
We're going to take turns.
If your current school district tried to entice you to remain there after the board offered you a position here, what would you do?
Once I make a decision, the decision is made. And I would be respectful of the offer if they made one. But if I am chosen and choose to come here, I will be here.
We currently have a shortage of substitutes. Do you have a solution? What would you recommend to help alleviate this shortage?
I think we have to be creative and think outside the box. And what does that mean? And, I would like to be more specific, but I don't know. I did have the opportunity to talk to Ms. Knetzer and Ms. Buckner just a moment ago, and I do know that they do a sub-orientation. I think we need to be out there and advertise that we are taking substitute applications. I'm sure that that's something that you all have already done. But, push the benefits if you have. And I know teachers probably might not appreciate this, but they would still benefit from that person. If you have a constant volunteer that's in your building, try to encourage that person to sub and, make sure that they go through the process and the orientation procedure. So if they're already in the building, they know the kids. But I think we're going to have to be creative and think outside the box. And like I said, I'm not sure what that looks like. If I'm given the opportunity to get here, that would definitely be something that needs to be addressed very quickly.
I kind of alluded to this earlier for those of you who are still here, who were here at the time, but we have a lot of teacher turnovers, teachers who don't stay in our county very long. Some who live here drive to other counties, even as far as an hour and a half away. Have you played any role in your county in trying to keep your teachers from leaving? I mean, what would you recommend to keep our teachers from leaving?
Well, I think teacher retention is huge in any county. We've heard for years there's a teacher shortage. I think a lot of smaller counties have been blessed and not endured that, but I think we're to the point now where we're seeing that everywhere of teacher shortage. So teacher retention is huge. And I think the first place that starts is the relationship. I think you have to build that relationship with your teachers. I think that they have to know that they are valued and truly appreciated, and they are truly the professional that they really are. And we have to celebrate that and try to get them, make sure that they're happy, and we can keep them here in Fentress County.
All right. In what area do you feel you need the most professional development?
would not say that I'm a micromanager because I have been told that point blank just last week by a person that I work closely with, and she was very appreciative of me allowing her the opportunity to, that I delegated some things to her. But oftentimes I think that I may not delegate everything that could be delegated, and I think that's definitely something I would need to work on, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to build others up is by giving them the opportunities to grow. And I think that would be one place that I would need to work on is delegating.
And also, many school educators feel that it's important to have parent involvement. In what ways, within your first year of being superintendent, would you try to reach that goal, or at least increase parent involvement?
Well, what I would like to do within the first 30 days, if I'm chosen, is to meet with every school administrator. And we would work and develop their school yearly goals, and parent engagement or parent involvement would definitely be one that we would work on. If I'm chosen as the director, I will be involved in this community. I will be active in the community, not only in school things, but in other community activities as well. And I think, again, just being there, being in the schools, being visual and present, that will, people will realize that I value that, and hopefully will be able to gain some additional family engagement just through my involvement. But we would have a family engagement or involvement goal at each school.
I have a couple of questions here about the number of tests that our students are required to take. Currently, they're required to take 3 times a year progress, and then we also have benchmark tests, progress monitoring, comma assessments, you name it, we're testing them. Do you have some changes that you would implement to alleviate some of these test burden on the students?
Well, obviously, I cannot change a state mandated test. And the universal screener that's taken 3 times, I wouldn't be able to change that. I would not be able to change, obviously, the state mandated test. And nor would I be able to change probably some of the progress monitoring, because that's how we're going to get our data points to identify students who need additional support. But as far as the other tests that you mentioned, benchmarks, common assessments, I think that would need to be a decision that the district administrators and the building administrators and myself would need to make. Are these really beneficial? Are we getting our bang for our buck, or are kids just burn out? So I think that would have to be a discussion that we would have and really look at the value of those tests, and is it what we need to do for kids and teachers?
Are there any work-related situations or tasks that make you uncomfortable, and if so, why?
In the 23 years that I have been in public education, I'm sure I haven't addressed every situation, but I have cleaned up many halls of sewer water. I have had an issue where my school failed a health inspection because a water heater went out the day before the health inspector came. And one day the health inspector was in my building when I was cleaning up sewer water. I have been threatened by a bus driver for bodily harm. So, you can't scare me. I teach public school. I kind of fall under that. So I've a lot. Each day brings something new, and you never know. But I felt I've addressed many things in my 23 years.
The teacher, as well as support staff, pay scales are much lower in Fentress County than surrounding counties. What would you possibly do to correct that or change that? Or what, do you have any ideas of how you could change that?
So in looking at the school budget, you know, a lot of areas do go to benefits and salaries. So I think we need to come up with a plan for reoccurring and replenishing items such as, you know, technology, transportation, maintenance. And we had talked about those before we actually started here when we were up here talking. You know, we've got to get stakeholder involvement from teachers and from building level principals. And salary, teacher assistant salary, custodian salaries. It takes all of us to run the school system. And I think we would definitely need to look at all of that. But that's not going to be something that can be fixed probably within the first year, maybe even the first 2 years. So that would take some time and some creative ideas as to establish consistency and arrive at that. But it would definitely be something I would, you know, try my best to start year one, because I do realize that that would be some time-consuming work.
I think they would appreciate that. Thank you.
Many educators and administrators in this county face on a daily truancy issues, issues of students not coming to school. Do you have any ideas of how you might try to change or implement things, or what would you plan on trying to do within your first year if chosen?
So Fentress County Schools has a chronically absentee rate of 16.9. So I think that that would definitely be another goal that would be addressed in the administrator meetings. We would have a yearly goal. And again, it's going to take all of us. So I think we would need to brainstorm at each school some ideas that would work for your school. One thing is, just some things off the top of my head, is identify those students that we know are chronically absent and assign them a check-in, check-out buddy. And if that student's not there that day, then somebody from the school calls and checks on them. You know, and if that gets to be overwhelming, you know, we can try to figure out creative ways to call and check on them. But I think that daily check-in, check-out would definitely be a huge help. Just one suggestion.
All right, let's move on to the audience. We have somebody who wants to come up and speak around the table on this. Yep. Come up. You have a question? Come on up.
Hi.
Hello.
My questions that I'm going to ask are from my students.
Okay,
So
awesome.
I asked them, since they weren't here, and what their 3 questions that they asked me to ask are basically relationships, improving relationships with adults are discussed, you know, and have been a big issue, and that they feel, or that my group specifically feels, that they have not been heard. And they want to know how you will prove to them that you respect them and their voice, and how you plan to listen to them.
So as a principal in a K-8 school, whenever I had the opportunity, I involved 7th and 8th grade students and gained their input. And I don't see why we couldn't do that at the 4 elementary schools here.
Next, as in regards to curriculum and pacing guides. In ELA, English Language Arts, student choice has been proven and recognized as one of the most effective ways to reach reluctant readers. How does that fit within pacing guides and curriculum mapping and all that?
Very good point. Currently, it does not. So I think, again, another issue in education where we're great outside-the-box thinkers, and I think we would have to come up with some way to try to reach those reluctant readers, maybe other than the curriculum.
Basically, this one's a main question, not my students. Every teacher has some kind of guiding philosophy for them that they base on something. What major researchers do you support, or that you agree with their work, that you would say that you guide your philosophies after? And if you don't know them every field, like specifically ELA and math, that's yours about math.
Marzano and teacher inquiry and whole class learning.
And the last one that I have to ask you is, when you make the decisions, the final decisions that you consider tough ones, or that would be labeled tough, whose face pops in your head? Like, what makes you, who do you feel like you hold yourself accountable to?
Well, if given this job, your face, her face, his face, the teachers that I make those decisions for, as well as the administrators that I make those decisions for.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the audience? Anybody else got a question? I won't leave anybody out. Do we have any follow-up questions over here from the panel? All righty. Would you like to make a closing remark before we close this session out?
And again, to those of you that's been here and heard this for the third time, I do apologize. As I stated earlier, I do feel that the director of schools should be transparent, consistent, and responsive and fair in all of their dealings. I feel like I bring lots of experience to the role of director of schools by being a teacher, an assistant principal, and a district leader. I can assure you I will not be outworked, and I would love the opportunity to work with the students and staff of Fentress County Schools.
Thank you very much. This session will end. We'll be back at 6 p.m. for the board meeting. Thank you all. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me out there? I want to welcome each and everybody that come tonight. If we will, let's call this meeting to order. And I would ask you, there's a little button here on your mic. If you'll press that down, you'll see a little red light come on and it'll light up here on your mic. Without that, they won't be able to hear you. So we'll go ahead and do a roll call.
Nikki Voles.
Here.
Darlene Brannon.
Present.
Kathy Williams.
Here.
Gary Peters.
Here.
Sierra Koger.
Here.
Melissa Brandstetter.
Present.
Karen Cooper.
Present.
Felicia Garrett.
Here.
William Cody.
Here.
Eddie Cook.
Here.
Okay, first of all, there's a survey back there that I think some may be still filling out. We've picked them all up from today, but if you do have one, please drop it in one of those trays back there and we'll get them on our way out when this meeting is concluded. I want to welcome Dr. Rebecca Farley with us. She's been here since about 1 o'clock today, and we certainly appreciate her coming in and taking questions. And we thank her very much, again, for coming over today. This process tonight is that we'll give the candidate 5 minutes or so, or whatever it takes, to introduce herself, and it'll follow by questions. Hopefully it'll take around 40 or 50 minutes to conclude tonight. Now, each board member has a packet with interview questions, and we will follow that as we have outlined, criterion 1 and so on and so forth, and you will score your question tonight on that. At our next meeting, we'll have new ones for you, and when you ask again, we'll do that. And we need to get those at some point and put them together. So with saying that, we'll let Dr. Rebecca Farley give us an introduction of herself tonight, followed by, I will do the first question. Mr. Eddie Cook is not with us tonight, so I'm kind of helping him out, so I'll do the first question, then we'll just move on, okay? So I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Farley.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for coming. I do appreciate you being here. My name is Rebecca Farley, and I am a product of Fentress County Schools. I attended kindergarten through 6th grade at Grimsley Elementary and 7th through 12 at Clark Range High School. During that time, I was blessed to have many wonderful teachers and opportunities as being a product of this school system. After graduating, I did not go straight into education, but I did graduate from Tennessee Tech in 1999, and I began teaching at North Cumberland Elementary School, where I taught 7th grade math, and I served there as the assistant principal for 1 year. I then went to Crab Orchard Elementary School, where I served as principal for 10 years with an awesome group of people, and we made lots of positive changes during my time there. And one of those positive changes were we were the Educator Consumer Foundation's award winner for Middle Tennessee for having the second highest gains of students on our standardized test. During that time, I also completed my doctorate. And in 2017, I was named Supervisor of Instruction. And in 2020, I was honored as being voted Supervisor of the Year for Cumberland County by my peers, and went on to represent the Upper Cumberland region as a finalist in the State Supervisor of the Year. So that was a huge honor as well. I am married. My husband is the Technology Director of Cumberland County Schools. My son attends Tennessee Tech, and my daughter has just started Middle Tennessee State, so that should be interesting these holidays. And I have the cutest dog ever. He is a Maltipoo who likes no one really but me. And I enjoy running. I completed my first marathon in 2018 and have plans to do another one in December of 2022. I also enjoy cross-stitching. I just completed a 12-picture collection that I started over 20 years ago. In my spare time, I teach graduate classes for South College as well. I believe that the Director of Schools is the instructional leader for the system. I also believe that the Director of Schools should be transparent, consistent, reactive, as well as responsive and fair in all of their dealings. I believe, with my experience as a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and a district supervisor, that I would bring a unique skill set to the Fentress County Director of Schools position. I believe, in my brief introduction, you can see that I am, in both my professional and personal life, that I am dedicated and have a determination about me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Farley, what will you do to create an atmosphere in the schools that will lead to educational excellence for all students?
I think one of the most important things is relationships. And I think how you strive to gain those relationships for our students is by ensuring that you have the correct people in the correct positions. I also think that we would need to gain input from our stakeholders, such as district level administrators and principals, as well as teachers, to see the items that we have in place, the testing that we're doing and the programs that we're doing, to see the effectiveness of those and to see what's working and what we can use to gain our biggest gains. And I think that would be how we could develop an atmosphere of excellence.
Thank you.
Dr. Farley, cite an instance in your current position that demonstrates your ability to build confidence in the schools.
So recently we had a single parent to move to Cumberland County, and she had no family there and limited friends. She called me on the 10 o'clock day of school and was a little stressed because she had just realized that with her job out of town, she would not be home for her child to get off the school bus. And we do not drop off unless there is a parent at home. She had gone through the process of filling out an out-of-zone application. However, our policies and procedures state if you are out of zone, you do not have the ability to ride a bus. So that first day, she and I talked about 30 minutes, and we brainstormed different activities that we could come up with the child to do after school. And was not able to that first day. I checked back in with her the second day. And finally, after the third day, and I had gone through a list of people that I knew that could help her and talked to food service and other people in the building, we did find a way for the child to get home. And the mother was very appreciative. She had moved to Cumberland County from California and wasn't used to someone at the school system working to help her.
Thank you.
Dr. Farley, tell us about the most important decision that you've made in your last or current position. How did you involve the people who would be affected by that decision?
As part of my responsibilities, I work with pre-K teachers. And pre-K teachers are observed more than most teachers are. Our teachers not only are observed by myself as the pre-K director, but they're also observed by the principal. And as you all know, those evaluations are how the state determines a teacher's overall level of effectiveness. So the state grants pre-K teachers the opportunity to use a teams model or to use the class model, which is what I am certified to do. I'm also certified to do teams, but my primary responsibility with pre-K is class. So to try to alleviate some of the nervousness associated with those observations, I talked to the pre-K teachers and the principals about getting rid of the teams and just using the class model. And we discussed it. The teachers and I worked together to develop a list of pros and cons, and then I shared that with the administrators. And I didn't meet with them together. I wanted both groups to feel comfortable and share their honest opinions. And shockingly enough, after they voted, both groups decided to leave it as it is. So the pre-K teachers are observed twice a year by me, and they're still observed by the building level principals. But I felt it was important to get the input of the principals who supervises the teacher in the building to know what's going on in their classroom. But I was trying to alleviate that of the teachers by giving them their input.
Dr. Farley, in your administration, what avenues are open for you to listen to the concerns of employees, students, parents, and the community? And how would you plan to have time available for all of those to be involved?
So let me start by saying, if someone reaches out to me and they're having an issue, regardless of what the day looks like, you make time to address that issue. And if it's a teacher, if it's a parent, if it's a community member, I strive in my current position when I have phone calls or issues to return all of my phone calls within 24 hours. I do feel that it's best to have an open door policy, but I think that you kind of have to be cautious, and it's hard to find a balance sometimes of an open door policy and a chain of command. So I would strive to accomplish that. But also I would want to give the teacher or the principal the opportunity to try to resolve the problem that a parent may be having at the school level before it's brought to central office.
Dr. Farley, I apologize for the call. In Criterion 4, it's one who has the wisdom to know when change is necessary and the ability to generate such change. Build support within our community and within our school system for change prior to implementation. And a leader that has a record of leadership through planned change. My question for you is, how do you keep up with research and initiatives that may drive that change?
So by working at a college and teaching graduate level classes, that gives me an in on current research, especially in educational research. And I am currently enrolled in and receive all of the newsletters and the updates that the Department of Education rolls out. And for those of you involved in the school system, you know that that's probably about 3 or 4 a week.
Yeah.
And the best way that I have found to stay abreast of those things is to read, 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 and read.
Thank you.
Sorry, Dr. Farley, describe how you've led a school or system in creating a vision and building support to accomplish that vision.
Right after going to Crab Orchard Elementary, we went through our SACS accreditation procedure, and I'm sure you all are familiar with that. We were developing a new vision statement. And what we did was, as a staff, including custodians and teacher assistants and everyone, we discussed what we wanted our students to know and be able to do when they left our K-8 facility. From that, we brainstormed some ideas and came up with some vision statements, and then we put that to a vote. And it was voted on by our staff, obviously by our parents. We also elicited community involvement, and we did allow our 7th and 8th graders to vote as well. Once that vision was arrived, it was posted in every classroom as well as common areas within the school, and it became part of our morning announcements. So it became part of our everyday life, and the students could tell you what that vision was and what it meant to them.
Thank you.
Dr. Farley, our board is dependent upon the county commission to fund the budget. How would you propose to gain their support off the budget, and how would you involve them in the budget discussion?
So I think the most important aspect of that is making sure as a director of schools that I would be transparent in all of my dealings. I would also begin working on budget development with the board early on in the process to ensure that we met the deadline. I would also, in looking at the budget, I do realize that a lot of the budget is going to personnel and to benefits. So I think we would definitely need to develop a long-range plan for reoccurring expenses such as technology, transportation, and maintenance, and have a plan for how we're going to accomplish those. But I do believe also that we would need to gain stakeholder input from building level administrators and teachers to figure out what they need in their building, and then we would need as a board to rank that as a priority. I think once we go through that process, County Commission would appreciate and know that those are true needs that we have. I would also attend their meetings and be aware of what's going on and the issues that they are dealing with. And I would invite them to one of our meetings if we needed to discuss something or had a burning issue. I would plan on, as a director of schools, having a yearly State of the School address, and I would invite them to be some of our honored guests as well. And I would also share monthly communications that I plan to share with stakeholders to County Commission, as they may not have children in the school system.
Dr. Farley, explain what you have done to build and maintain a good relationship with your board.
I am aware, familiar, and follow all of the policies and procedures which they establish, especially in dealings with principals, teachers, and parents. I do attend their meetings, and I do respond to them in a timely manner or take their call immediately if I can.
Dr. Farley, tell us 3 instructional improvements that have occurred as a result of your leadership. What evidence do you have that they were improvements?
So 3 curricular improvements would be the voluntary pre-K program, our participation in the LIFT network, and Cumberland Connect. So with VPK, I have strived to ensure consistency in our program. All of our classrooms, all 12 of our classrooms now use the same curriculum, and it was voted on by the teachers. When a decision the teachers are going to be affected by the decision, I try to let them make the decision by voting on it. And how I know that that's been effective is the feedback that they give me and the appreciation that they tell me for allowing them to be a part. Cumberland County Schools participates in the LIFT network, and that is a group that of 20 districts across the state of Tennessee. And we focus on kindergarten through 5th grade ELA instruction. And our teachers have the opportunity to work with a consultant to learn improved educational strategies in their classrooms. And I know that's effective because, again, I'm a big proponent of surveying, and we have surveyed the teachers, and they have given us positive feedback about the participation and the things that they've learned. And I've also been able to observe that through the walkthroughs that I've been able to complete. This school year, I have been in 28 ELA classrooms, and I've seen vast improvements in our ELA instruction. Cumberland Connect is a virtual program that was started during the pandemic, and it was developed from scratch. We had to develop an enrollment policy and plan, attendance policies and plans, grading procedures, and general how-tos. We held 8 orientation sessions to train parents and to let them know what they could expect from the program. We did monitor students' progress on grades and attendance at the mid-9 weeks and the end of the 9 weeks grading period. Now, with that program, obviously there was some struggles, but we did make it through the entire school year with a virtual program. At the beginning of the year, we started out with approximately 1,100 virtual learners in K-12, and we finished the school year with less than 200.
Dr. Farley, how can you bring together a diverse, talented group of individuals to form an effective team?
So I think, again, relationships is huge. And I also think that any group of people in an educational setting, when you bring them together, you have to keep in mind what your focus is. And that is not only the students, but doing what's best for the students. And when you keep those two things in mind and trying to build that relationship of a person for the students, I think you will bring anybody together and can accomplish anything.
Dr. Farley, give some specific examples of things you have done as an administrator that you think significantly contributed to making your faculty or staff a team.
When I became principal at Crab Orchard Elementary School, the first thing I did was I surveyed all of the staff. And I asked them 3 things that they felt was going well, and I asked them 3 things that they would like to see changed. And so, mind you, that was in 2006. And me personally, at that time, wasn't as technology savvy as I was now, so it was pen and paper. So, I read every response. Some of the things that they were displeased with, I could make changes quickly, and I did. Others, I was not able to do that. That same year, one of our in-service day, I got a bus. I had a bus to come in and get us, told them we were taking a field trip, told them to dress comfortable. That's the only directions I gave them. I didn't tell them where we were going or what we were doing. We went to the 4-H camp over in Crossville, and they have a trust course. And we had to come together and be able to complete that trust course by depending on each other to be successful and accomplish our task. After we did the trust course, we then had lunch together, and we completed a colors assessment, which gave you personality traits and character traits of individuals. That was very eye-opening. Even in looking as me being new and only being in the school for a few weeks, after I would see some things, I'm like, oh, so that explains why this, or that explains why that. So that was very eye-opening, and everyone enjoyed it and seemed to have a good time. The day ended with me falling backwards from a 4-foot platform into the arms of my new staff.
Dr. Farley, we expect our Director of Schools to be active and involved with the York Institute and local private schools. How would you go about accomplishing this?
Well, I would want to meet with the administrators of the school within the first 30 days. I would do a monthly check-in with them, and I would share monthly communications with them specifically to make sure that they are aware of what's going on. And when we could, I would like to collaborate with them to do some professional development activities. And I would also invite them to be part of my yearly State of the Schools address.
All right, that concludes our round of questioning that's been set out, approved by the board. Dr. Farley, do you have any questions or comments you want to ask the board?
I would have a closing, but no questions.
All righty. With that said, you have a closing remark, please.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity to get to meet and discuss with you all today. It's been a great day. It has been a long day. And for those of you that's been here and heard all three openings and closings, I do apologize. But thank you for being here. I truly appreciate you. And it has been an honor to get to come back to Fentress County and have this meeting with you all. As I stated earlier, I do believe that a director of school should be transparent, should be consistent, should be responsive and fair in all of their dealings. I would strive daily to do this as I represent myself and as I represent this Board of Education. I would communicate frequently with all stakeholders and gather their input whenever possible. I can assure you I will not be outworked. I do believe that with my experience as a teacher, an assistant principal, and a principal, that would be a skill set that could benefit the director of schools in any county. And I would love the opportunity to work with you all to set high expectations and achieve more. I do have for each of you a copy of my transition plan, and I also have a copy of my supervisor evaluation that was completed last year. The first pages are the part that was completed by the director. The second pages are the parts that were completed by my fellow supervisors as well as principals, and on the back is the comments that principals and supervisors made about me.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this afternoon's meeting. If I can get a motion to adjourn. I hear a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed likewise. This meeting is adjourned.